I'm here at Old Panama, Panama Viejo. Old Panama was established in 1519, and this is one of the most iconic locations in the city of Panama, this old tower, and what I'm standing in the middle of what was once a plaza. One of the neat things about this vantage point is you can see this tower, which is 500 years old. These ruins, most of these ruins are about 500 years old. But then you can see some of the skyscrapers of the modern city. And so it's interesting to think about that old and new. You can think about Jesus telling parables of old and new cloth, etc. I can't help but think about the fact that in ministry, we are dealing with both the past and the present. I'm not talking about just scripture, though that would be relevant, that one of our responsibilities is to deal with scripture, a document that, depending on whether we're looking at the Old or New Testament, is anywhere from 2,000 years old up. But we've got to then kind of travel back in time, understand that world and that time, and understand the text in the culture of its day. But then we've got to bring it back to the present and apply it to our modern world. And that's not an easy task, but it's an important task. And so if we don't give our all, if we don't dig deeply in our sermon preparation, then a couple of things can happen. We can just apply things to the present without understanding what it meant in the past, and so the application may not be accurate. Or we can spend so much time in the past that we leave them lost in time and do not bring it back and connect it to the future. So I guess the first thing I just want to remind us is we're taking an ancient document, but we've got to make it relevant to a modern world, and that takes a great deal of effort. But I'm also reminded in ministry, there's a sense in which we build on the past and we prepare for the future. I've been doing a lot of reading recently on generational theory and just kind of look at some of the characteristics of different generations, some of the time marking events, key things that have happened in the life experience of different generations and how it impacts potentially how they view the world. Though we understand that people are different, and just because someone's of a particular generation, it doesn't mean they're necessarily acting in a certain way. But there are some tendencies. And it's interesting, with some generations, they tend to overlook, forget, and take for granted the habits or accomplishments of the generations before them. They almost want to just push them out of the way and move forward. Then you have other generations that kind of have almost an adoration for the past. And I just want to challenge us in ministry. I often say when I go to a new work, I live with the ghost of ministers past. That if the last minister was beloved, I have to deal with that. If that last minister did a lot of things that were wrong, then I have to live with that. Often they don't trust me because they couldn't trust him. Or if the last preacher was adored, then when I come in, you know, there's so much allegiance to that person, it's difficult for me or my family to fit in. Maybe you've dealt with that. And that's a part of ministry, is dealing with the past and the present. And also, the reality is that there are those who've gone before us who have done great things, and we can have a couple of reactions. First of all, we can ignore what's been done before us and like, oh, man, I've got to do it myself. I've got to learn it myself. I've got to reinvent the wheel myself. Or I can go to another extreme and just be caught up in the past and that we're not willing to try anything new. And I think in all of these, there's a reminder, or at least we need a reminder for balance. And that as I do my work, I don't need to throw away the past. You know, I need to look at the arguments and discussions and the debates of the past. When I'm working in a local church, I need to value what has been accomplished by those who have gone before me, and I need to brag on them and note their accomplishments. I need to learn and build on what they've done. If you've been around me much, you've heard me say, you know, we stand on the shoulders of giants. That didn't originate with me, but I love that quote, we stand on the shoulders of giants. that all of us enjoy what we enjoy and are able to do what we do because of those who went before us. So I think we need to treasure and value what went before us, honor that, and speak of that, respect that. Yet we can't live in the past. Times change, and you think one of the things we've been reminded of with the pandemic is the gospel is the same, but how that gospel is communicated changed. And that most of your generations now are visible, are visual oriented, I guess is a better way to put it. It's not that their past were invisible, but they're more visual in their orientation. And we need to think about learning technology. And I think about teachers who are not willing to learn anything new. You know, they went through school so many years ago, and whatever we learn then is how it's going to be. And we've got to have an attitude of we need to keep on learning. So we need to value the past, but we can't live in the past, and so there has to be this balance. And so maybe this will give you some things to think about. I'm just reminded as I look at the ruins of old Panama and the buildings of new Panama that really a part of ministry is finding the balance and the connections between the past and the present. I pray that you'll have a great day. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Ministry Matters That Matter.